What if everything you thought you knew about power and justice was about to be turned on its head? In a moment that defies all expectations, racist officers frame a black man, their confident grins hiding a secret that could shatter their world. But wait, there's more than meets the eye. As you watch, their smug smiles will vanish in an instant when his true identity is revealed, leaving everyone, including the officers, speechless. Imagine witnessing a twist so shocking that it challenges every assumption about who really holds power. Can you guess what secret lies behind his quiet dignity? Stay tuned, because this story exposes deep-rooted injustice and will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very end. On a busy city street outside a worn-down police station stands Darius, a calm and strong black man. He has a quiet dignity in his eyes that tells of many years of hardship and struggle. Darius has faced injustice before, but he never loses his calm. Today, even though he has been wrongly framed by the officers, he stands tall and composed. His face shows a mix of sadness and quiet determination. There is a hint in his eyes that he holds a secret that will soon make everyone question what they thought they knew about him. Near Darius, two officers, Officer Everett and Officer Walker, move with self-important steps. Their uniforms are neat, and their faces hold arrogant smiles. They believe they have done the right thing and that the truth is on their side. They speak in loud, harsh voices and look at Darius as if he is the problem. In their eyes, their power is clear, and they do not see the man behind the mistake. They are sure that they have caught a criminal, even though nothing could be further from the truth. The street around them is busy and rough. Old brick buildings line the road, and flickering streetlights add to the feeling of tension. The sound of distant traffic and murmurs from passers-by fill the air. People stop and stare, some with anger and others with sympathy. The cold night air makes the scene feel even more serious. Darius had come here to live his life quietly, but he finds himself caught in a moment of injustice. He does not fight back with anger. Instead, he looks at the officers with calm strength. His quiet manner speaks of a life where he had to work hard to be seen as a person, not just a target of prejudice. Everyone around him senses that there is more to him than meets the eye. There is a mystery in his quiet smile and steady gaze that hints at a powerful truth hidden within his past. Meanwhile, Officer Everett and Officer Walker stand close, still convinced of their own version of the story. They are unable to see the real Darius standing before them. Their arrogance fills the air, and the crowd watches, waiting for the next moment when Darius's true identity will change everything. This setting, a mix of a rough city street, a cold police station, and a crowd full of curious onlookers, sets the stage for a moment of truth. Darius's hidden secret is waiting to be revealed, a truth that will shake the beliefs of those who have judged him without knowing his story. As the night deepens, tension builds around Darius, the quiet black man whose steady gaze hides more than anyone could guess. The officers, Officer Everett and Officer Walker, now wear smug smiles as they parade him like a criminal through the dimly lit streets. Their voices are harsh as they loudly accuse him of crimes he never committed. "We caught you red-handed," Officer Everett declares, his tone full of self-righteous certainty. Officer Walker nods in agreement, his eyes burning with prejudice. They forcefully search him, speaking over his quiet protests, confident that their version of events is the only truth. The crowd that had gathered around the scene begins to react. Some people stop in their tracks, their faces showing shock and disbelief. Others murmur softly to one another, sharing looks that mix anger with disappointment. A few passers-by pull out their phones to record what they see, while others try to hide their disapproval with nervous glances. In this charged atmosphere, every sound, the heavy footsteps of the officers, the distant hum of city traffic, and even the soft rustle of leaves in the wind, adds to the feeling that something very wrong is unfolding. Darius stands silently as they accuse him, his expression calm despite the chaos swirling around him. Inside, however, a storm rages. He feels the sting of each harsh word like a physical blow, and every false accusation cuts deep. He has faced injustice his whole life, and the weight of those years is almost too much to bear. Yet, he refuses to let anger take over. Instead, he holds on to his inner strength, determined to prove his innocence, not by shouting back, but by remaining dignified in the face of abuse. As the officers continue to hurl baseless claims, their voices grow louder and more aggressive. "We know who you are, and you don't belong here." Officer Walker sneers, his tone dripping with disdain. Their words, filled with racist assumptions, seem designed to humiliate Darius further. The officers are so convinced of their power that they fail to notice the subtle defiance in Darius's eyes, a silent promise that he will not be broken by their hatred. The murmurs from the onlookers swell into a low hum of discontent. Some people shift uneasily, while others whisper among themselves, questioning the officer's behavior. A young man in the crowd shakes his head, and an older woman covers her mouth in shock. It is clear that the public's view is starting to turn against the officers, as the scene grows increasingly heated. Inside, Darius feels a mix of fear and determination. He knows that the world around him has all too often judged him based on his skin rather than his actions. But tonight, he is ready to challenge those assumptions, even if it means enduring further humiliation. His heart beats steadily as he braces himself for what comes next, aware that every moment could either break him or reveal the hidden truth of his identity. Just as Officer Everett moves closer, grabbing Darius's arm a bit too tightly, something unexpected happens. Darius's eyes flicker with a hint of resolve, and his expression shifts from quiet endurance to firm determination. There is a spark in his gaze that no one in the crowd can ignore, a silent promise that he will not be defined by their prejudices. The officers, caught up in their arrogance, seem momentarily taken aback by the strength in his eyes. In that charged instant, the crowd holds its breath. Everyone senses that something crucial is about to be revealed, a secret that could change the entire situation. The officers' confident grins waver as they notice that Darius's calm defiance is not the submission they expected. Instead, it is a signal that his life holds a truth they have never imagined. As the murmurs grow louder and more urgent, one question hangs in the air. What is it about Darius that could make these racist officers, so sure of their authority, suddenly feel a chill of fear? The answer remains hidden, poised to burst forth and shatter the false narrative that has been carefully constructed. The conflict reaches a critical moment. Darius's quiet strength clashes with the officer's baseless arrogance. The tension is palpable, and every eye in the crowd is fixed on him, waiting for that one revelation that promises to change everything. In that charged moment when every eye was fixed on him and the question of his hidden secret hung heavy in the air, Darius stepped forward. The murmurs of the crowd died down as he moved toward Officer Everett and Officer Walker, whose arrogant smiles had just begun to falter. The cool night air seemed to hold its breath as Darius squared his shoulders and prepared to speak. Officer Everett, his face tight with anger, was the first to break the silence. "You think you can just stand there and defy us?" he barked, his voice echoing off the nearby buildings. Officer Walker smirked, stepping in close behind him. "You're nothing but a troublemaker," he added, his tone mocking. Darius looked each officer in the eye with calm determination. "I am not here to cause trouble," he said steadily. "I am here to tell the truth." His voice was low but firm, carrying the weight of years spent being misunderstood and judged. The tension in the air was thick. Even the distant sounds of the city seemed to fade away, as his words cut through the silence. Officer Everett sneered. "Truth? What truth can you possibly have that would change what we already know?" he demanded. "We have all the evidence we need." His words were meant to intimidate, to show that he was in control, but the confidence in his voice wavered ever so slightly when he saw the unwavering look in Darius's eyes. Darius took a step closer, his gaze unflinching. "The evidence you have is nothing but a lie you built to cover your own biases," he replied. "I have lived my whole life under the weight of assumptions. Tonight, I am here not to fight you with anger, but to show you the truth." His voice was calm, yet each word struck like a hammer against the false narrative they had constructed. The crowd grew quiet, listening intently. A few people leaned forward, their faces a mixture of hope and anticipation. The officers exchanged glances, uncertain for the first time. Officer Walker's hand hovered near his holster, as if he feared what might come next. "You have no right," Officer Everett spat, trying to regain his authority. "You have no proof of anything. We caught you doing what you did, and that's enough." His tone was dismissive, but Darius's presence made his words sound hollow. Darius's eyes softened slightly, as if he remembered the many times he had been treated like this before. "I have always been treated as if I am less than I truly am," he said quietly. "But I refuse to let that define me. I refuse to let your prejudice win." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You think you hold all the power because of your badges and your positions, but sometimes power is not about what you have, but what you know and what you choose to see." A hush fell over the crowd. Officer Walker's smirk faded entirely, replaced by a look of uncertainty. The officer's confident stance was crumbling before the eyes of everyone present. Darius continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. "Every day I have been forced to prove my worth," he said. "I have been judged not by my actions, but by the color of my skin. And tonight, you try to frame me with lies, to build a case against me that has no truth behind it." He took a deep breath, his eyes now glimmering with a quiet fire. "But I am more than what you see. I carry with me a history of struggle, of hard-won victories, and of standing up for what is right, even when the odds were against me." Officer Everett's face reddened with anger. "You're trying to lecture us?" he roared, stepping forward, his hand now firmly gripping his baton. "You have no idea who you are messing with." But as he spoke, a hint of doubt flickered in his eyes, as if the strength in Darius's words was shaking his own beliefs. The confrontation grew louder, more intense, with Darius and the officers locked in a battle of words and wills. The crowd, once passive, now leaned in, murmuring amongst themselves, caught up in the drama unfolding before them. Every passing second felt like an eternity, as Darius stood there, unyielding, challenging the officers to see beyond their shallow assumptions. In a moment of raw, palpable tension, Darius spoke the words that would change everything. "I am not just a man who sits by a pool," he declared. "I am a voice for all those who have been silenced by prejudice. And soon you will learn the truth of who I am." His words hung in the air, a promise of a revelation that would force the officers to confront the error of their ways. For a brief moment, the officers paused, their eyes darting between each other, as if searching for an escape from the inevitable truth. The power struggle had reached its peak, and the crowd held its breath, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. The stage was set. The tension was at its breaking point, and as Darius's words echoed in the stillness of the night, one thing became clear. The truth was about to be revealed, and nothing would ever be the same again. Just as the tension reached its peak, and Darius promised that the truth would soon change everything, the moment of revelation finally arrived. The crowd held its breath as Darius slowly reached into his jacket pocket. With deliberate calm, he pulled out a small, worn envelope and held it up for everyone to see. Inside, the envelope was an official identification card, a card that clearly bore the seal of the city's Community Affairs Office. In that instant, everything shifted. The officers' faces, once filled with smug certainty, turned pale. Officer Everett's hand, which had been clenched in anger moments before, began to tremble. Officer Walker's smirk vanished completely, replaced by a look of utter shock. Darius's calm eyes met theirs, and the silence that fell over the crowd was heavy with disbelief. Darius spoke in a steady, clear voice that carried across the hushed street. "I am not a common man you can easily frame," he said. "I am the Assistant Director of Community Affairs for this city, a position I have held for over 5 years. His words echoed around him, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. Every person watching could hardly believe what they were hearing. The very man they had thought was just another resident was, in fact, a respected leader who had worked tirelessly for justice and equality in his community. As Darius's true identity sank in, the weight of his revelation was felt by everyone present. The officers, who had been so sure of their power, now stood frozen in shock. Officer Everett's eyes darted around as if searching for an escape from the consequences of his actions, while Officer Walker's face flushed with a mix of regret and fear. Their confident demeanor had crumbled in an instant, replaced by a realization that they had not only humiliated an innocent man, but had also disrespected someone who held a position of great responsibility and honor. The crowd, which had been murmuring in anger and disbelief, erupted in a mix of gasps and whispered comments. Some onlookers shook their heads, while others began recording the scene on their phones. It was clear that this was no ordinary incident. This was a turning point that would force everyone to confront the injustice of racial bias. Darius continued, his voice now softer, but no less firm. "For years, I have faced discrimination and the burden of proving my worth in spaces where I was never truly welcome," he said. "I chose to hide my title to avoid extra scrutiny, but today I cannot stand by and let false accusations and prejudice go unchallenged." His words carried the pain of past struggles and the strength of a man who had fought hard against injustice. He spoke of the challenges he had overcome, of the times when he was doubted simply because of the color of his skin. Now, his hidden identity became a powerful tool, a tool to expose the bias and arrogance of those who had tried to frame him. The officer's reactions grew even more intense. Officer Everett's voice cracked as he tried to speak, but no words came out. Officer Walker took a step back, his eyes wide and unblinking, as if he were witnessing something entirely unexpected. The transformation was complete. The smug grins and arrogant laughter had given way to shock, regret, and even fear. In that charged moment, the balance of power had shifted completely. Darius's revelation was not just about clearing his name. It was a direct challenge to the systemic bias that had allowed officers like Everett and Walker to act without accountability. The crowd's mood shifted, too. What began as a scene of racial injustice was now a powerful statement about truth and respect. As Darius carefully placed his identification back into his pocket, he looked directly at the officers. "I hope you learn from this," he said quietly, "because the truth has a way of catching up with us all." His words, simple yet profound, hung in the air long after they were spoken. In that moment, everyone knew that nothing would ever be the same. The officers had been exposed, and the truth had set the stage for change. Change that would ripple through the community and force those in power to face the consequences of their actions. After Darius's calm declaration, "I hope you learn from this, because the truth has a way of catching up with us all," a heavy silence settled over the street. The shock on the officers' faces was unmistakable, and the murmurs of the crowd slowly gave way to a more thoughtful atmosphere. In the minutes that followed, the immediate fallout of Darius's revelation began to take shape. Officer Everett and Officer Walker, once so sure of themselves, were quickly whisked away by higher authorities. A senior officer arrived on the scene, his tone firm yet measured, and informed them that their actions would be subject to a full investigation. Rumors spread fast in the community, and soon news of the incident and Darius's true identity rippled through local neighborhoods and social media. People began to realize that the man they had seen unfairly treated was not only innocent, but also a respected community leader with a long history of fighting for justice. As the investigation unfolded, the police department was forced to confront the deep-seated biases within its ranks. Internal disciplinary actions were initiated, and both Officer Everett and Officer Walker faced formal reprimands. Their case became a powerful example of what happens when prejudice is allowed to govern actions. For many within the department, this incident sparked a long-overdue discussion about training and accountability. Workshops on cultural sensitivity and anti-bias training were scheduled, promising a new direction for a department that had long been criticized for its treatment of minority communities. Outside, the impact on the community was immediate. Neighbors who had watched the incident on their phones gathered in small groups, discussing what they had seen and sharing their own stories of injustice. At a nearby community center, a meeting was held where residents debated the need for reforms and greater transparency in law enforcement practices. One local leader commented, "Today we witnessed not just a wrongful act, but the power of truth. It's a wake-up call for all of us." For Darius, the personal toll of the incident had been heavy. For years, he had borne the burden of being judged by the color of his skin, yet in that moment, his quiet strength and dignity had shone through, transforming public opinion. Later that evening, as he sat on a bench outside the police station, Darius reflected on the events. His mind replayed the stunned faces of the officers and the hopeful, yet angry looks of the onlookers. Even though he had been the target of a cruel frame-up, his true identity had come to light, and with it, a chance for change. He remembered the countless times he had been forced to defend his worth in places where he should have felt safe. "I have seen too many people suffer because of assumptions," Darius thought quietly. "But today, maybe something will finally change." His heart was heavy with the knowledge of past injustices, yet lightened by the possibility that his courage might inspire others to stand up against systemic racism. Across the street, community members who had once been silent began to speak out. A young man approached Darius and said, "I always thought that things would never change, but today I saw you stand up without anger. It gave me hope." An older woman added, "I've seen so much pain because of bias, and today you showed us that truth can break through even the darkest prejudice." Their words, though simple, resonated deeply with Darius. He knew that his struggle was not just his own, it was shared by many, and each small step towards justice was a victory for the entire community. The police department's public apology and the disciplinary actions against the officers sparked a broader conversation in local news and on social media. People discussed the importance of accountability and the need for law enforcement to truly serve all members of the community with fairness and respect. Opinion pieces, community forums, and online debates highlighted that the real power in society comes from acknowledging mistakes and learning from them. At a press conference the following day, the police chief addressed the incident. "We regret the actions that led to this wrongful framing," he said. "Our department is committed to change and ensuring that every citizen is treated with the dignity they deserve. Today's incident is a reminder that our work is never done, and we must continually strive for fairness and justice." His words, though carefully chosen, marked a significant turning point for a department long criticized for its handling of racial bias. For Darius, the resolution was bittersweet. While the officer's disgrace and the shift in public opinion offered a glimmer of hope for systemic change, he knew that the scars of such injustice run deep. He resolved to continue his work in the community, using his own experiences as a catalyst for reform. "Truth and accountability are our strongest tools," he told a small gathering of neighbors later that day. "We must always stand up and speak out when we see injustice, because silence only lets bias win." As the day came to an end, the once tense street slowly returned to its normal rhythm. The lights of the city twinkled softly as people headed home, their hearts filled with a renewed commitment to challenge prejudice wherever they saw it. For Darius, the journey was far from over, but the events of that day had set in motion a powerful wave of change, one that promised to leave a lasting impact on the community and on the hearts of all who witnessed the truth. As the day turns to evening and the city lights begin to glow, the truth of what happened lingers in every mind. Darius's revelation and the fallout that followed remind us that injustice cannot hide forever. The officers who once wore smug grins now face the weight of their mistakes, and the community stands united in the hope for real change. Think for a moment. What does true justice look like to you? Have you ever witnessed an act of bias or seen someone be wrongly judged? Darius's courage shows us that speaking the truth is not only a way to clear one's name, but also a powerful step toward changing a system that lets prejudice flourish. His calm strength in the face of false accusations inspires us all to stand up when we see injustice. If you believe that every person deserves fairness and that our communities must hold people accountable for their actions, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know what steps you think we can take to build a more just world. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth and challenge us to do better. Together, we can spread awareness and drive change, one conversation at a time. Thank you for watching and for being part of this journey toward a fairer, more compassionate future.